In a war-torn world where the fierce battles determine the fate of the civilization, Warseers emerge from the shadows to lead their armies to glory or death. Their eyes blaze with knowledge of the upcoming battles, and their hands tightly grip the artifacts that grant the power of gods and demons. Legions clash on the battlefield, magic intertwines with steel, and only the wisest strategist can change the course of history. Hello everyone, my name is Artem, and today I have a mega epic and mega strategic game for you to review in the form of Legends of Signum II Warseer by Signum Games. As you understand, this is the second version of the game. I haven't played the first version, but the booklet says that the Signum rules have been thoroughly revised, and now players plunge into even more rapid and fierce battles. Today, we're going to test it. So, what is Legends of Signum II? This is a skirmish for 2 to 4 players where each participant can take control of a hero and several characters and minions to play different spell cards and tactics to try to run around the battlefield and destroy enemies, thereby accomplishing various feats and gaining victory points. After all, these points help determine the winner at the end of the game. And although you will find a rulebook in the box, consisting of 96 pages, I assure you that the game is not complicated, but incredibly diverse due to the different factions, characters' abilities, additional maps, and unique terrains. It's worth to say that these very nice miniatures do not come painted, and in general they come with the deluxe version of the game. But there is another version with tokens instead of miniatures. So I suggest you take a closer look at all this beauty in action, so let's go! At the beginning of the game, players choose a faction, then form their own battle deck, which has 30 cards and consists of general battle cards and special faction cards indicated on 2 corresponding cards. Each player also receives their own hero to move around the map, trying to destroy the enemy. It is also necessary to add additional faction characters or mercenaries to your army, according to the leadership indicator of the hero. Each card has its rank, a small asterisk in the corner. The total number of player characters of the corresponding rank must not exceed the limit indicated on the hero's card. Players also need to choose one of the available scenarios and prepare the battlefield by placing the appropriate terrain hexes on it, as well as one of the unique terrain hexes on the corresponding hexes. Of course, these terrains have some unusual properties that will affect the course of the game. And of course, you also need to place your hero on the field in one of the cells of the deployment zone closest to the player. In addition, you also form a deck of feat cards. These are the unique cards that allow you to gain victory points by completing the tasks indicated on the cards. In the end, all that remains is to form a starting hand. For that, draw 7 cards from the deck, discard 3, and shuffle them in the deck, leaving only 4 in your hand. To be honest, I specifically made such detailed preparations to show you the variety of the game before it starts. And then the most interesting tactical battles and tasks begin. So players take turns one after another. Each turn consists of several phases. The first is the initial phase, where you simply restore all your cards and remove any effects that affected them. And most importantly, you update your hero's power, the yellow marker, to your income, which means that every turn you will spend hero's power to draw cards by moving the yellow marker. And at the beginning of the turn, you will restore the amount of hero's power to the level of the blue die and can spend it again. You also take 1 card from the battle deck and a feat card, because these cards can bring your victory closer if the conditions indicated on them are met. And then comes the activation phase. This is an active part of the game, where you perform plenty of actions. For example, you can summon one of the characters from the reserve to the field by placing its miniature in the deployment zone. Each character card indicates the cost of recruiting in hero's power, as well as the income indicator that you also increase. After recruiting, you place the card in the appropriate zone and place the miniature in the deployment zone. However, this character is not active during this round and cannot perform actions unless it has the appropriate ability. I would like to note that each player cannot have more than 7 characters on the battlefield at the same time, including the hero and minions. But having active creatures on the field, you can activate them. In general, the activation itself comes to movement and attack. Each character has a movement indicator, how many hexes it can move, and then, if desired, perform an attack. In addition, you can use run and move to an additional hex, but without attacking. However, when moving across the field, you cannot enter hexes with other characters or impassable terrain, such as rivers. But you can freely cross a river by fording or crossing a bridge. Also, the battlefield has hexes of difficult terrain, such as forests. Entering such terrain ends the actions of this character. However, otherwise, after moving, you can perform an attack. There are 3 types of attacks: ranged, melee, and magical. They are performed in the same way, but some skills or abilities may not affect all types of attacks. So when you attack, you need to choose an enemy creature within the attack radius. This is the indicator, and also you have to be on the line of sight, which is usually drawn from any part of 2 hexes. However, this line is blocked by any other characters in hexes with forests and hills. Therefore, to perform an attack, the player rolls the appropriate number of dice indicated in the attack block, and possibly adds more dice according to their abilities or other cards. For example, the Princess of Harmony has the Warlord abilities, which gives you an extra purple die if you attack with a gold or silver creature that is on the next hex. In addition, with certain abilities, such as Master of Attack, which, for example, you now received from this building by activating it before the creature takes action, you can re-roll some dice, except critical hit. There are 5 types of dice, which generally differ from each other only in symbols on their faces, and each rolled hit and critical hit deals 1 wound to the target. These wounds can be blocked by armor by discarding the appropriate number of tokens, unless it is a magic attack that is not blocked by armor. But all the other hits are marked with wounds, and if you reduce the number of lives of the enemy creature to 0, you destroy it. Its miniature is removed from the field, and the card is sent to the player's history. For the destruction of an enemy character, you always get 1 victory point by marking it with a feat card face down. But the most interesting thing about combat is, of course, the combination of abilities. Some creatures receive additional bonuses to combat, for example, if they have previously moved. Some can counterattack when certain types of attacks are made on them, and some need to pay heroes power to activate their abilities. There are many abilities that characters can have, and you see just a part of them. By the way, we have not talked about such die symbols as critical hit and push. By rolling a critical hit in addition to 1 wound, you also activate a special ability of your character. It can be an additional wound, rolling extra die, or adding push, or moving after destroying an enemy, or push, or even performing another attack after the current one. Push symbol forces your opponent to move 1 hex, and most importantly, you as the attacker choose where exactly the opponent should move. And if you push your opponent's creature to enter difficult terrain in this way, it immediately receives 1 damage. Speaking of creature abilities, they can be standard and you can find a list of them in the glossary, or unique. Then they are described in the text on a card. These abilities can be either passive and act constantly. For example, run adds 2 instead of 1 to the move, triggered at a certain moment, or a special ability that can replace a basic attack such as healing someone at a certain distance. Active abilities, such as deal for which you pay heroes power. About activation of the abilities. In your turn, you can also use the abilities of unique terrains at the end of the character's activation, and these abilities affect all creatures that are adjacent to the terrain. For example, the catacombs allow you to roll a die, and for hit or critical hit, you can move this creature to any terrain, and push moves it to your deployment zone, or the altar that gives healing when you roll hit on a certain die. About the cards of the battle deck in your hand. These are support cards, and believe me, they are very effective because they give you an incredible amount of opportunities during your turn. And of course, you can also play them during your turn. Almost all of them cost heroes power, but they also give you the opportunity to increase your income. These cards are divided into 4 types: relics, spells, tactics, and buildings. Spell cards are one-time instant cards that, after being drawn and activated, are immediately discarded, giving opportunity to enchant a creature and give it some new abilities. Destroy the armor of an enemy creature, destroy terrain on the field, move creatures, or even summon a minion. Minions are represented in the game by 2-sided tokens. In general, you can have several minions on the field, but do not forget that you can have no more than 7 creatures on the field at a time under your control, and minions occupy a hex of a stronger character that you might summon instead of them. As for the abilities of these babies, they have a magic attack at a distance of 1 hex and have only 1 life, but they have a unique faction ability. For example, when your minion is destroyed, your 1 creature within 2 hexes gains 1 armor. Now let's get back to the support cards. Relics are special cards that are played exclusively on your character and provide it with additional abilities. A character cannot have more than 3 relics, and most relics have a certain number of ability activations, after which they are discarded. Building cards are placed in the city zone and can be activated during your turn. Usually, you just pay an additional hero's power and activate the specified ability. Tactic cards are played at any time of the game, even during the opponent's turn, as long as the activation condition is met. For example, when your opponent is going to activate their building or summon a creature, you can play the appropriate card and cancel the effect. With these cards, you can even deal damage in response to an attack on your creature. By the way, as an action in your turn, you can discard one of the support cards into history and increase your income by 1. And now let's talk about the most important thing, namely the feat cards, because they will lead you to victory. Each feat card has 2 parts, so to speak, a condition that you need to achieve, as well as an ability that will work when you discard. So in your turn as an action, you can discard your feat card face down and perform one of the abilities below by sending the card to the general discard, that is, draw a card from the battle deck, get 2 effects, or summon a minion. Or, if you have accomplished a feat, that is, achieved the specified condition, you send the card to your Hall of Fame and get the specified number of points. The conditions of the feats can be military, which are usually played out after the destruction of the enemy character. And they have additional conditions, such as destroying the enemy with the red die symbol, or with a certain type of attack or in a certain area, or achievements that are played out at any time during the player's turn. For example, you deal 6 wounds on your opponent this turn, or your hero has 1 life left, or your income is 2 more than your opponent's. You play the appropriate card and receive the specified number of victory points. However, of course, no more than 1 card for destroying a creature and no more than 1 feat card with the same name. And that's about it. So in your turn, you can summon 1 new creature, activate all your characters, either by moving them around the field or using their unique abilities, play any cards from the battle deck, raise your income, and accomplish feats. Then the turn is passed to another player, and the whole game can end in several ways. Either one of the players manages to score 10 victory points, or the feat deck runs out, or one of the heroes is destroyed. Then the player with the most points wins. I don't know what the first version of Legends of Signum was like, but the second one turned out to be very diverse. Really, it's a kind of constructor of different properties, opportunities, and abilities that you need to combine all together and use in time. But the main goal is not in this, and not that you need to run around the field and look for enemies to destroy them. But the basis is the feat cards, because meeting their conditions is the key to your victory. As for the variety, Legends of Signum II has a lot of different game modes, both regular dueling and rounds of up to 4 players where you can even play in teams, or even a tournament with additional opportunities to buy new characters and get achievements. Speaking of tournaments, this is a different game altogether, as it allows players to play a kind of campaign over several games. After each game, in addition to victory points, players also receive development points, dragon coins, for which players can buy various improvements and new characters for their squads. That is, players do not just combat on the battlefield, but also build their own strategy, creating their own combination of improvements and characters before the round starts. In addition, there is a whole campaign for playing solo, where you will find a separate box full of all kinds of content. In each scenario, you will fight against a certain enemy and their minions on a specially prepared field with special rules. And at the end, you will receive victory points that you may convert into dragon coins that help you reinforce your squads. In addition, I also want to note that each faction in the game has its own unique focus. So playing for a new faction, you will get new sensations in terms of strategies, because in addition to the characters, you will also receive 10 unique cards to your deck from the faction itself. As for the appearance, this version with miniatures is of course just gorgeous. Incredible figures, and when there are many of them on the battlefield, it looks really cool. However, Signum Games also offers boxes without plastic miniatures. Of course, it's not as epic, but more affordable. But as for the game itself, it really looks multi-layered. You need to take into account many things, including the abilities of the characters and location on the map, because you can push the enemy to a certain terrain with one roll of a dice and deal additional damage, or you can get closer to unique terrain and use their properties at the end. And you also need to take into account support cards that you also need to integrate into your game at the appropriate time. When to play a spell, when to hang a relic on a hero, how to create a situation for playing a tactic card. But all this depends on the amount of your hero's power per round, and it depends on your income that needs to be increased. And it all works great. Of course, at first it doesn't go so fast, because you start developing yourself, bringing creatures to the field to increase income, and the game develops gradually. But when closer to the middle, due to the fullness of the field, downtime appears because your opponent activates and executes everything, and time passes longer than you'd like. Downtime in the game occurs because of the huge number of abilities, and at the beginning, you constantly have to look at the glossary to understand how and what it works. And I can tell you that one game is not enough to get everything in place, but after that it certainly becomes much easier. However, if you look at Legends of Signum II in general, it's a kind of step-by-step strategy, where the main thing is not just to be stronger than everyone else, but to be able to adapt to any conditions that feat cards bring you. As you can see, this is an English version of the game. The full localization of the game is not expected. However, there will be rules in Ukrainian. And that's all I have to say about Legends of Signum II Warseer. If this review was useful for you, please like it and subscribe, share this video with your friends and acquaintances, and of course leave comments both in support of the channel and just with your impressions of the game. In the end, I want to thank you all for watching my video, and a special thanks to all my sponsors. Take care. Everything will be Ukraine. Bye-bye.